Hello, my fellow devils. This is your Devil Crypto News host, Coyote, and welcome to our very first episode of the Devil Crypto News Show. The news show where we talk about crypto, NFTs, personal finance, and more. So today we're actually going to be talking about crypto and politics, crypto scams to be on the lookout for, and even a new potential gem on the Ethereum network. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Old Scratch. He's going to be helping me with a lot of the conversations we're getting into today. And Old Scratch, something you threw to me on the agenda here is to chat about someone named Bruce Fenton. From what I understand, Bruce is a Bitcoiner and crypto entrepreneur, and he's challenging Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire for the Senate seat there. And he actually is funding his campaign with $5 million from Bitcoin Wealth. And he's running, it seems, as a Republican, and he's challenging the Democratic senator and 6 other Republicans. That's really interesting, just the idea of crypto and politics to begin with, but so something so close to home, and something being funded by Bitcoin. Old Scratch, do you know a little bit more about this, or have any maybe anything else to shed light on?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I've done a little research on Bruce Fenton, who I'll search up right now. Yeah, just to add to your point, it is interesting to see pretty much kind of politician jumping into the boat and being pro crypto in general, right? But from what I've been able to find on Bruce Fenton is that he was part of the board of directors for something called the Bitcoin Foundation, and this was started around I want to say 2012, 2013, at least when he was a part of it, 2014, kind of in the early days of crypto when it was like a really big deal at the time, even of course as of now also, but at the time, Bitcoin had just broken like $100, I think, in 2013. So this was the time when it was getting really talked about and everything, and he was part of this foundation. But what's interesting is he wasn't there for very long, and it's really hard, at least in my research doing this, to find like a lot of information on the Bitcoin Foundation. In fact, let's see if I can find it right now. They have a website still. Yeah, it sees as a nonprofit, as it'll come up. The Bitcoin Foundation was an American nonprofit corporation. It says was, as if it's gone, but it never says anything about being defunct or going bankrupt or anything like that. And when I go to their website, which they did have one. Let me try and find it. Oh, they have a link, then we'll go through there. Anyway, Bruce Fenton, as I look for the website, was he left like probably within a year, less than a year, within a year, and that was that. And the Bitcoin Foundation actually had kind of a lot of drama on the board, according to some of the sources I read, including the video that we just did for the Devil Crypto YouTube channel, our video essay that just came out on Mt. Gox. The person who did the Mt. Gox scam, Mark Karpeles, he was part of this board, coincidentally, with Bruce Fenton. Now, of course, I am not saying Bruce Fenton was a con artist or anything like that, right? Mark Karpeles had a lot of influence in the Bitcoin world at the time, so it doesn't surprise me at all that he was part of this foundation. But you really can't find a lot of information on it, in my research, that is. Point is, though, is Bruce Fenton is a successful Bitcoiner, as you said in the very beginning, and he is throwing $5 million into this political campaign of his that he just announced a few days ago, challenging the current sitting New Hampshire Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan. This sort of non-politician that's really into crypto could just kind of take the election ahead of midterms.
Yeah. No, you brought up, Old Scratch, you brought up some good points. I mean, first of all, like you said, we don't know maybe too much about this person's background, that foundation's background, but, I think about like looking at someone's job resume or looking at a company, and you look at the tenure of folks that have worked there, and, sometimes when you see people jumping back and forth and not staying for a year, staying for a short amount of times, it does raise questions to what's actually going on behind closed doors there. So really interesting the amount of time that you said Bruce actually spent there. And then you're right. I mean, a lot of what we hear, I would say, in the news and media about politicians that are advocating or even talking against crypto, it has to do with their stance. Are they pro crypto or not? But it's interesting to see someone that actually is crypto minded first that happens to be breaking into politics. So it's really just an interesting shift in dynamic where, like you said, some of the funds or many of the funds that he's using from his crypto background is actually going to be potentially what helps him fund the campaign and even win that seat. So it'd be interesting to see if other folks start playing in that field too.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So, I some sources said that Bruce Fenton probably shouldn't have announced this late. It's kind of late for political announcements, and that maybe it's a little too late for him to pick up this momentum, challenging a sitting senator. But as you know, like myself in the United States, weirder things have happened in politics. So it's certainly not an impossibility at all. But what I'm curious about is we just got this Biden executive order almost a month ago now. That was a crypto executive order. And we do, in case anyone's interested, sign up on our website with your email. We do a newsletter every week. I wrote about the Biden executive order and what it means. I kind of wanted to break it apart in a nonpartisan way and kind of just, okay, like what's the good, what's the bad, what's the potential good, what's the potential bad. And a lot of it is, just more regulation in the crypto space, which scares the hell out of DeFi nuts and crypto people because, the whole point is it's decentralized. But obviously, as we were talking about before we even started this episode, there's these scams that are going on that are just insane. I mean, it took me so long just to find like a project that appeared to be somewhat good that you'll hear about more later on in this episode. But do you think that if, say, this Bruce Fenton wins and he's the new Republican senator of New Hampshire, can you see someone with his voice maybe challenging Biden's executive order at all? Do you think that would be a good move? Do you think that would be more of a political
Yeah,
move? I'm just curious because it's a Republican
yeah.
versus a Democrat essentially, and the executive order has caused a lot of, I would say, fear already. And this is a person of a different opposing party with the president.
Yeah, what's really interesting about it's funny, like whether we're talking about crypto, we're talking about medical marijuana, just anything under the sun, it's like there's always a period of time where first and foremost, like only a certain group, like a marginalized group, is doing it. It's perceived as something that's sometimes bad or different, or no one really cares about it. It's a phase until the point where it gets so successful that you see the money that's attached to it, and then it seems the government, not just the United States, but as soon as folks see the earning potential that's there, that's when regulation starts to get involved. So I think a lot of what the government's driving for, whether it's Biden or others, is just trying to get their slice of the pie, if you will. So I do think that someone like the gentleman we're talking about, Bruce, like potentially it could be him challenging Biden or bringing his creative ideas to the table. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a more mainstream adoption of why having crypto top of mind for politicians is going to be important. And I think it scares folks like us who care about DeFi and the whole point of not having a lot of regulation. But it's just, I think that there's going to be more attention for better or for worse on what's happening in the crypto space. So I think at the end of the day, the government is going to find a way to tax, they're going to find a way to capitalize off of it. But it would be interesting to see if this gentleman or others actually challenge from an insider's perspective on what the level of regulation actually should be.
Totally agree, and that's something our tech lead Mephisto always talks about. Because people ask him about his background in politics and how he currently works in politics. Still, is like, how do people have asked him, how do we avoid the government getting involved? And his answer is, you don't. Like that's the
You
simply true.
don't.
Yeah,
You don't. You do all you can to make the most and enjoy what you're doing and have the control you can. But at the end of the day, like once they get involved and want to, there's only so much you can do. You can advocate, you can lobby, etc. But they're still going to be able to do a lot of what they want to do at a certain point.
Absolutely. And, just to end it on this, I suppose, I'm actually not too fearful personally of this executive order. I actually thought it was it was actually pretty open minded, I would say. A lot of the things that they want to hit seem genuinely necessary in this space. It's just, I think there's that level of trust that kicks in, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, what's the catch? I think that's what everyone is waiting for in the next few years. And, to see if,
Yeah.
and if it'll even work.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too. I mean, I think a lot of what's driving this is just the idea of there's been a lot of rug pulls, there's been a lot of scams, like you mentioned, where it's still the government's responsibility to protect citizens. And if they are trying to build towards something that's going to help and protect, then I'm actually in support of that. I actually have a funny story. I don't know if you want to hear old scratch, but a story of a friend of mine that actually, if there was a little bit more regulation in crypto, it probably could have saved her, some heartache. But a story of a scam that occurred. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I guess story time with Coyote here, but I think like many folks, you mentioned that even when Bitcoin in 2013 14 was trending at $100, a lot of people that invested early on, they have the horror stories of I invested when crypto was $100 or $700, 7,000, and then they jumped out way too early. When it was trending as high as $60,000, like they were like, man, if I had just kept I had five Bitcoin, right? And they sold when it was $300, whatever. So I heard so many stories, and I know so many folks that have talked about that. But this is actually a story of a friend that was a little bit of the opposite, where she invested in crypto and Bitcoin very early on. She bought when it was trending probably at $3,000 or so for a Bitcoin, and she was at the stage of when it hit 61 grand, ready to actually pull out and say, okay, great, I've saved enough. I think she actually owned like one or one and a half Bitcoin, and she had done pretty well. Like the ROI on the investment she made, it was a smart choice. And so the problem with that though is that she invested so early on that I believe she was with a platform called GDEX or something like this, which doesn't exist anymore. And because she had invested in GDEX, now that she was smart, she didn't touch it. She had diamond hands. She wasn't going to pull out until it got to the point that she wanted. GDEX didn't exist anymore. And I believe GDEX was actually acquired or purchased or I don't know, merged with Coinbase. And so essentially anyone that had a wallet or had an account or funds on GDEX, their funds automatically transferred over to Coinbase.
Uh-oh.
And so, yeah, right. And so what happened was my friend not being super savvy, I guess, with technology. She is a little bit older, but really just not knowing what to do, she was overly cautious. She said she knew there was a lot of money that she wanted to take out, or a lot of potential like fiat currency she could turn her Bitcoin investment into. And so she was just overly cautious. So when she tried to go to gdex.com, it kind of explained to her, hey, that no longer exists. We have Coinbase now, etc. But there was a link on whatever website she found herself on that essentially said, click here if you want support to get your GDEX wallet turned into like a Coinbase wallet. And so again, her being paranoid, wanting to protect her investment, she picks up the phone, calls the number, talks to a representative that's helping her transition or should transition the funds over. I think you kind of know where I'm going with this.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But safe to say, fast forward to a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from her, and she's like, "Issue, I need you to come over." I'm like, "What's going on?" She's like, "It has to do with crypto. Don't want to talk about it, but you got to come over. I am too frustrated. I want you to come over." So I go to her house. She doesn't live super far away, and she has everything pulled up. She has her laptop up. She has her phone up, her email. She's like, "Look, this is access to my Coinbase wallet, my Coinbase account. Like, you have access to everything. I need your help." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Well, essentially what happened was I talked to a representative who was supposed to get money transferred over from my GDEX wallet to my Coinbase wallet. I saw the transfer, I see the transaction, but I don't see the funds now. Where are they?" And so, like, just top of mind, I'm thinking already, like, this sounds kind of fishy. I don't know what's going on. So let me do some research. So I'm looking around, I'm pointing, I see the funds, they've been transferred. It's like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 have been transferred from her Coinbase to her Coinbase wallet. But then I see another transfer where it's basically that amount had been transferred out. So I'm looking, I'm doing some exploring. I'm like, this doesn't look right. I see a ledger, there's like 60, 70 pages long. I'm like, something's not right here. So I call my buddy who knows even more than I do. And he's, I would say, more of an expert in the crypto space. Have him come over and we're looking together. So he's looking through page by page the ledger of the transaction. He's being optimistic about it. He's like, I'm trying to find it out. And I asked my friend to recount the story, like what actually happened between the time you talked to that gentleman on the phone and this transaction happened, et cetera. And so basically what she said happened was the person she talked to said, hey, I'm going to walk you through the steps of transitioning from your Coinbase account to your Coinbase wallet. So that all happened. They're sharing screens. And I'm like, uh-oh, red flag. They're sharing screens. The transition happens. The transfer happens. And then she says another transaction happens where he's essentially saying, I'm going to now send this from this wallet to the next wallet. And this person suggested that for some reason, not only with the Bitcoin, she also transfer over some Ethereum that she held.
Oh,
So I'm like, again, red flag of like, why would someone ever advise you on what to do with your Ethereum versus Bitcoin? Like, no one's going to advise you that's legit on what to do with your personal finances. Like that's just red flags all around. So, my buddy, he's looking through the ledger we can't find anything. And I'm like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it sounds like he got scammed. Like, can we call this number back? No, no one's answering. Like it's so long story short, we figured that this is a fake operative that or fake agent that was basically trying to get her and others to send money from their Coinbase wallet to Coinbase or Coinbase to Coinbase wallet and then transfer out to that person's wallet. We found the wallet that the third transaction went to, and it was something like 6.4 Bitcoin, or it was a lot of money that they had obviously scammed a lot of people out of. And unfortunately, my friend was one of those. And she asked, what should I do? I said, I don't know, maybe call the FBI. Like it's one of those things where, I think that's what the executive order or things are driving towards, is just more of protection for folks that are getting scammed. But I don't know. What do you think, Old Scratch?
well, rest in peace to that Bitcoin Ethereum. First off, that's a real shame. Yeah, I've heard it. God, I mean, that's really extreme, though. Gosh, I mean, I've had like that happen to some people I know, but not to that amount of money. I mean, that really sucks. But I don't know. I think yes, that is definitely part of the aim for the executive order that Biden passed. Was okay. How do we handle the scams that are happening in this space that is just like so awful? They are looking into that. I contacted the FBI over a scam once that I got
Really?
involved with. Yeah, and they were telling me like, yeah, just so you know, like, because I was like, what do we do? There's like, it doesn't seem like there's much help like right now, and they're like, no, there isn't, and like the FBI has recently taken a huge interest in crypto scams. So actually, if anyone out there has ever been involved in a really big crypto scam of some kind, a rug pull, a thief, whatever it is, contact the FBI. They have offices in like pretty much every major city, even some of the smaller
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
And they're really friendly and nice, and they'll just tell you what to do, where to send reports and stuff. They are looking into them.
Okay.
Some people still think this, not that it's going to do much, right? Now, the executive order is going to make it so that maybe there's an entire agency dedicated to
Sure.
crypto scams alone.
Like a task force or something like that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I imagine that is the case that they're going to explore. You know what ultimately it's going to be? I think in the long run this will be a good thing to limit scams. The problem is when it comes to your taxes, it's not going to be fun. So I think that's
Yeah.
ultimately, and it already isn't, but it's probably going to be a little worse long term. Successful, fast moving industry. It's like crazy how much money is being poured into crypto and how much the
Absolutely.
return of I mean, even for like these altcoins, it's amazing. So obviously the government, like you said earlier, wants a piece of the pie, and that's ultimately going to be their end goal at the end of the day. However, I do think the potential of like, your friend being involved in something like that is going to limit a lot over time
Yeah.
where that's as
No,
common.
no, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, there's always pros and cons for everything. And, as many people that have made, like you said, some good money off of crypto, there's probably just as many that have lost a lot. And, I think it's even a culture, a little bit of folks that they've seen the gains that some folks make, and they think that's what's going to happen almost as a guarantee. And I know a lot of the websites and apps you can buy crypto off of, they advise like this is not, something it's guaranteed, et cetera, be cautious. But it takes some stories like that before people really realize what could actually happen to your money.
Absolutely. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see more. And again, like, we're going to obviously have more politicians like Bruce Fenton running on crypto. I mean, I'm blown away that even during the 2020 election with Trump and Biden, that was barely a topic. It's like, yeah, we were busy with the pandemic and everything. I mean, obviously that was the number one priority, but that barely came up from like either of them or either party. Um,
Yeah.
it's like, really? This $7 trillion industry in like less than 10 years? That never
Yeah.
came up? That's a little shocking.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, like you said, there's so many things going on in the world. So I'm sure they were busy, as we saw, talking about a lot of stuff, and there's still a lot of crazy things going on in the world. But I mean, you can't ignore that much money, even if you're not talking about it on the political campaign space. I mean, it's still probably top of mind for a lot of folks.
Right. And I think over the next few years, obviously we're going to see a lot more people popping up running alone just on crypto. I mean, we have the new obviously way of running where it's like, hey, look at me, I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. I mean, that's not just a Trump thing. I mean, a lot of people have done that and are still doing that. Now we're going to have more of like the, hey, I actually know cryptocurrency, understand it, and want to help you guys make more money. That's going to be a good way to run in politics, and I think that we're going to see a lot more people pop up like that.
Yeah, and I guess the question I have for you then, in the meantime, for folks like my friend, you said you even had a case with the FBI. Like, besides the FBI and having to take it to the point of being reactive to when you do get scammed, what do you suggest, Old Scratch, to prevent people from getting scammed to begin with, and ways just to prevent hacks and things from taking place?
Yeah, so I think there's two things that need to happen. The first one is kind of like, I'm not going to just well, yeah, actually this is a good point to bring up. I think simplifying DeFi is the first thing, making it so that what you're dealing with doesn't seem as confusing and complicated. I think when you buy a token on Pancake Swap, even if you know how to do it, it's a little confusing. There's a lot of steps to it. It's not like you can just walk someone through it super easily the first time. It takes some learning, and obviously the more steps there are to something, the more complicated it is, the way easier it is to get scammed by people because they could totally
Sure,
take
sure.
advantage of that lack of knowledge. We need to get to the point where buying cryptocurrency with cryptocurrency should be as simple as me handing you $100 in cash in person, but also keeping it as secure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point is like, you're talking about fast transactions happening in real time, et cetera. Like if there's 20, 30 steps that I need to do and verifications that need to happen, like, is it really faster or easier at that point? I agree with you. It's education and building out even um it's education and it's even building out just processes that are easier all around.
Absolutely. And I think ultimately that's going to be the goal for everybody right now. And yeah, with Devil, that's our main goal is just make DeFi easier because we want it to be like, okay, maybe you're 83 years old and don't
Yeah,
understand technology that much, but you know how to buy Devil and really any cryptocurrency. That would be great. And that's the way we want to move that in. So, and we're not the only project that does that, obviously. There's other projects looking to
sure,
simplify
sure.
DeFi. That, to me, is the biggest thing you can absolutely do to limit people from being scammed, at least from like in the way that maybe your friend got scammed at the very least. We got to do a
Yeah,
lot more to handle people that rug. That's kind of preventable until we come up with a good solution.
there might be some people tuning in right now, or folks that already are familiar with crypto, people that are dipping their toes in the water that are curious about projects to look into. I know you shared one with me called Equal. I didn't have
Yes.
too much time to look it up, but it seemed like one that might be important to put on the radar. Could you tell me a little bit more about that one?
Absolutely. So, every episode of Devil Crypto News, as you know, is the first episode. To the people just watching for the first time, we want to highlight a token that or crypto project of some kind that we have researched and found. And FYI, and let me be clear, this is not financial information. We are not telling you to invest in these projects at all. We're just kind of showing off projects we have found that are under $1 million market cap. And this is a good one. I would think that if it's under $1 million market cap, they have a docs team entirely, so I felt safe covering them. But again, do your own research. Not saying you should buy them. Neither is Coyote. But
Yeah, no,
yeah. So equal, kind of what we were just talking about. Um, seems like they have the overall goal of simplifying DeFi. And just to read what we're all about on their website, equal.tech/about, the Equal vision has a bilateral focus. Equal was incepted under the premise that there are optimization issues within the blockchain industry. These issues have halted a movement toward mass adoption and a lack of transfer between investment and utility. It's a very tech way, I think, of saying, hey, this stuff's kind of confusing, so we should make more people buy it. It's like, no, no, no. Decentralization's the key. How do you simplify decentralization? Because you can get people's hands onto crypto without centralizing crypto. So how do we make that easier? And I'm curious, do you think that that's probably the ultimate goal to go toward? Because otherwise, crypto at the end of the day on Robinhood is just a stock now.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends that will say, "Oh, I own crypto, I own Bitcoin, Ethereum, or well, I guess mostly Bitcoin." And it's like, "Oh, great, tell me more." And they're like, "Yeah, I have a Robinhood account." And it's like, "Okay, do you really own it? Like, go and make a transfer to me. Like, let me send me some, you know what I mean?" So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about centralization versus decentralization. And again, no shade to Robinhood and some of the other platforms that let you do it. They're introducing crypto, and that's great. But just a general understanding of like the value and importance of DeFi. And I, shout out again to the team here that you mentioned at Equal for doing a good job of that. Yeah, do your own research. We're all about education on this show. We want to teach you about stuff. Do your own research, back the projects that make the most sense. Comment and ask us questions if you have about projects. We're extremely excited to share that with you. But thanks, Old Scratch, for a really engaging show. Hopefully everyone has really enjoyed the content. If you did, hope you will like, subscribe, comment below so that we can build a broader network and keep bringing you great content like this. So thanks everybody that tuned in today, and we're excited to see you on the next one.